The Speaker recognizes the member for the district of Stephenville-Port.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while it's certainly a privilege to rise in this House to speak on any particular topic, it's with great difficulty to speak to this budget today. In fact, and I was quoted on the record this past weekend as saying that this was a terrible budget, and I believe the member from Mount Pearl North referenced that earlier this afternoon in question period. And so be it. In fact, I certainly did say it was a terrible budget. It's a bad budget, a tough budget. There's a number of words you could use to describe it. But given the state we're in right now, this budget is something where a number of difficult choices had to be made. In order, I guess, to put into context, I guess, some of the remarks that I wish to make today, I wish to let the members opposite and those listening and some of my colleagues know the background in which I've came from. I've spent the last 8 years working with a nonprofit organization. The nonprofit organization I work with primarily helped individuals who are unemployed, seeking retraining, those experiencing homelessness, housing, crisis issues, and the particular clientele were those who had challenges with mental health and mental health diagnoses. This work involved me communicating with a number of government departments on a daily basis, advanced education and skills, Newfoundland Labrador Housing Corporation, and so on and so forth. And each day I would advocate for individuals to receive better services and enhanced services and ensure that there was a safety net there for them. And so as we listen to this budget debate unfold, one of the messages that the members opposite keep raising, in addition to the third party as well, is how we're striking the low income the hardest. And nothing could be further from the truth when you take a look at some of the measures we put in place. In fact, no recipient of income support in Newfoundland and Labrador will pay a levy. That is a fact. No recipient of income support in this province will pay a levy. And I just wanted to say that was important to point out. One of the things that's been another constant reminder here, and the member of Mount Pearl North said this just the other day, is that the blame game is a silly game. Right? And the blame game is a silly game. And you continue to hear them say that. Well, I can tell you one thing. Acknowledging blame is one thing. Calling this a game is a completely other ball game, okay? We're not here playing games. This is real life, and this is a budget, and this is a budget that's going to impact every Newfoundland and Labradorian. And the fact that it's going to impact every Newfoundland and Labradorian is not lost on me, and is certainly not lost on us. But I'll remind the members opposite that this is no game. And in fact, in order for me to explain to them how this is not a game, there's two words I'd like to define. First word being crisis. Crisis can be defined as a time of intense difficulty, trouble or danger. I'm not sure if they truly comprehend the understanding of that word. The second word that we're using as well is unprecedented. The definition of unprecedented is never done or known before. Well, let me tell you, we are in an unprecedented crisis right now, and the member opposite are saying that we knew we would be here. Well, I can tell you, when our Premier wrote the former Premier in September of this past year and asked for a fiscal update, he did not receive an answer. Did not receive an answer. In fact, they were forecasting a deficit of around $1.89 billion. 1.1, hang on now, 1.1 in the fall. We get in, we're told it's 1.89, then it's 2.4, and if we do nothing, it's going to go to $2.7 billion. So when you're saying that the Liberals knew about the financial situation, nothing could be further from the truth. You know, we were completely misled. There is no doubt about that. I'm sorry to those listening at home, I'm being a little heckled right now at the moment, and that's okay. I'll compose myself. I have a number of things I wish to say.
Order, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the tax measures in this budget bring us back to 2000 and 2006, 2007 levels. It's very sad that we have to go back in time now and correct something that the members opposite had every opportunity to do. People are upset with the deficit reduction levy. People are upset with the HST increase, and so be it. They have every right to be upset. A couple things I'd like to point out, though, however. In 2001, the highest earners in this province were taxed on a personal income level of 18.02%. Okay? That's the highest earners in the province. In 2001, that's 15 years ago. Okay? With this budget, we've brought them back to that 18.3%. Now, somewhere in between there, and the year specifically is 2007, 2008, and 2010, the members opposite dropped the highest earners' income tax levels to 16.5%, in 07, down to 15.5% in 08, and then down to 13.3% in 2010. So the highest earners in our province received just shy of a 5% tax decrease at a time in which we hit peak oil. At a time in which we hit peak oil. Meanwhile, the lowest earners in our province, their tax levels dropped 1% in 07, then remained the same. The lowest earners' income tax levels remain the same. Meanwhile, they dropped the highest earners. So what we're doing right now in this budget, we've increased 0.5% on our first income bracket. We're gone back 3% to the others. The other thing is the HST. And the members opposite said, oh, and the member for Topsail-Paradise, the official leader of the opposition, saying, oh, well, we promised and we ran on the fact we'd keep HST. You know? Well, the HST was something that they had dropped at a time in which they had no business in dropping. It's one thing to drop HST 1% one year. Does anybody notice a 1% drop in 1 year? The next year drop 1% again. Well, to take away that percentage and give everybody a benefit, and for us to now go and say, no, we want that back, well, that's a terrible thing to do. And that's why people are frustrated. You can't just give someone something and then take it back. But the problem in doing that is that they knew darn well at the time that they were hitting peak oil production. For any member opposite to say that they had no idea there was going to be peak oil and no one could predict the price of oil, well, I implore you to look back at some of the media and the context back in 2007, 2008, when it was well known there was going to be peak oil, and the average price in 2008 was $148 a barrel. And with this in mind, knowing we had peak oil, the idea was let's drop HST, let's decrease our highest earners' income tax levels, and let's let it roll. And now here we are. So basically what we're doing right now is we're reverting back to those 06, 07 tax levels. Nobody likes to hear that, and it's terrible to talk in billions of dollars. But this is the harsh reality that we were faced with. You know, we didn't want to do this. I didn't want to come into government in my first year, my first term, someone with a non-profit background trying to help our most vulnerable. I did not want to come in and increase taxes. I can promise you that. And I don't believe anyone here sitting here today wanted to increase taxes. Okay? But that was just a reality of a group that was running in an unsustainable fashion. You know, no one could have predicted the price of oil. Well, what's also interesting to note is in 2014, the Auditor General, Terry Padden at the time, and I'll quote what he said just in case anyone wasn't aware. November 2014, the Auditor General told the members opposite, we see that the weakening in commodity prices, in particular oil, this could have a significant impact on the forecast deficit for this year. Padden said provincial expenses are up 58% over the last decade. So that was in 2014. In 2014, the Auditor General warned the members opposite and reminded them that in the 10 years that they were in power, that provincial expenditures were up 58%. Now, I don't know about anyone else here, but at a time when your expenditures are over half of what they would have been 10 years prior, why would you decrease taxes to the highest earners in the province, Newfoundland and Labrador? Why would you decrease the HST year after year? Where's the plan in sustaining this? You know, at a time when we were prospering and having money, there was no rainy day fund. I'm proud to have been sitting here next to my colleague for the district of St. George's Humber when the first private member's resolution was introduced in the House this year, and we introduced a legacy fund. What a novel idea, a legacy fund. Where was that thought? Where was that thought when there was so much time to consider the income coming in from oil royalties? Where was the thought of a legacy fund? Nowhere to be seen. In fact, the government expenditures were 26% more per capita than any other province over those 10 years. Double their debt since 2004. Double their debt. And we're warned by the Auditor General, among others, and among economists, you know. And so another thing during that time, one thing, and this is what I'll applaud the members, because I'll give credit where credit is due, okay? And so the member for Fairland, along with the member for Topsail-Paradise, have said, well, you know what, I implore the members opposite in government right now to name one thing. Name one school we shouldn't have built. Name one road we shouldn't have paved. Name one road we shouldn't have paved. Name one hospital we should have built. You know, so I can honestly tell you this. I applaud you for your investments, and I cannot tell you there's not one school you shouldn't have built. I certainly can't. But there's a few things I can tell you you should have done. They could have done some work on the Harbour Grace Court. They could have done some work in investing in looking at a sustainable plan. In any event, there's some things they could have done. And there's one thing that I'm learning, and that's in estimates. And that's in estimates. And to those listening at home and to those watching, I'll explain to you a little bit about what estimates is. Essentially, we're sitting here in this house most mornings from 9 until 12, and then again in the evenings from 6 until 9. At which time the minister of each department goes line by line through all the things in their portfolio. And the members opposite get every opportunity to ask a question. And what I've commonly seen, because I've attended just about every estimates committee there has been, even the ones I'm not required to attend, because I'm learning line by line how our cabinet and how our various departments made some of the decisions they made. And these are not ones that affect everyday Newfoundland Labradorians, and these are not tax increases, okay? These are things that could have easily been done year after year by the members opposite. For example, the Minister of Environment and Conservation, the member for Lake Melville, sat here the other day with his department officials. And we were going line by line, and the members were asking questions. They said, well, you see, last year we budgeted approximately, and I'll just throw some figures out there, you budgeted approximately $80,000 for transportation and communications. That was your budget. Now, you actually ended up spending about $120,000. So this year you're going to expend about $40,000. Why the decrease? How did you get here? How did you drop your expenditures from $120,000 last year down to $40,000? And the typical answers, and the answer from the Environment Conservation Minister were quite simple. Quite simple. We're going to do less helicopter travel this year. We're going to do less travel. We're not going to go to that conference this year. Okay? These are small things, and these things are happening in each and every single department. Purchased services. Purchased services. Property. Furnishings. These are the types of expenditure lines that are going from $50,000 down to $10,000. You know, the member for St. John's Centre said we nickel and dime departments. Well, you know what? In some cases, we certainly did nickel and dime departments, and I can't quite understand why the members opposite didn't look at doing something similar when it comes to things like office supplies. Where's with this March Madness every year? At the end of the year, every March, every department has all this surplus money left over, and they want to go buy pens and papers and pads, and it's essentially March Madness. So what we've done, and what every single department has done, is they've taken the time to go line by line through these items, Mr. Speaker, line by line through these items, and we found $100 million in savings through this type of exercise. Now, I don't understand how they had 12 years and they did not take one opportunity to have a look at this. It's absolutely mind-blowing. When our Treasury Board did their line-by-line review, along the same lines as our estimates here, there were some comments made, some comments that were quite appalling, actually. Never before has there been a line-by-line exercise like the one undertaken this year, was a comment made. Never before. Never before. So at a period of time when your oil has hit peak production, you're receiving the most royalty, you have a surplus, you're decreasing taxes, but yet you never took the time to go line-by-line estimates. Past ministers usually didn't read line-by-line estimates until they were in the House. Until they were in the House. I don't know what they were doing for the rest of the year. Some departments had never even met with the finance minister before. There's agencies, boards, and commissions that had never sat down with the finance minister in the past. You know, so when you look at the amount of things that we looked at some actual savings in, I don't understand why they didn't do that. So I can certainly applaud you for your investments, but I have no respect for the fact that you did not take the time to go line by line through departments and look at some serious savings in areas simple as communications. We're not going to go to that conference this year. We're going to limit travel. Some of the other common questions and estimates, they're saying, well, look at the salaries here. And one was interesting with the Department of Business, Tourism, Culture and Rural Development. You know, when we looked at that department there and they're looking at salaries, they say, well, there's a couple of positions here. There must be, because we had budgeted this X amount of dollars. The revised amount is here. Now you're going to spend less. And the answers simply are, well, we had these vacant positions. We're not going to fill them. And in estimates, the members opposite say, oh, okay, very good. So what we're saying is we're willing to work harder and make do with less. So our attrition plan is very much the same as your attrition plan, except that we've been actualized it in various departments where there is vacancies. And that's where we found significant savings. I still can't understand why you haven't found savings there yourself. With respect to fees, here's another interesting one, because we're commonly heard that all these fees, there's some 300 fees, and these fees are going to increase. Well, you know, this is a difficult sentence to say, but there's one or two good fee increases. There certainly is, okay? The Department of Justice is looking at increasing a victim fine surcharge. Is that a bad fee increase? I'm not sure if they ever considered something like that. The Department of Environment and Conservation,
Order, please.
Did a federal, provincial, and territorial scan and looked across the entire country, and they found that multinational corporations that do things such as mining exploration, what have you, and they looked at it and they said, we're way behind the times. When you look at the rest of Atlantic Canada, we are paying significantly less, thousands and thousands of dollars less than any other areas. So they said, my God, some of these fees haven't been increased since 97. 97, 98 was the last time this fee was increased. Nova Scotia's over here charging $20,000 more than we are. Why don't we get in line with the rest of the times? So these are things that the other members opposite had time to look at in departments and look at some of these fees, and are they practical? We're also looking at cost recovery on these fees. There's many services that we provide to these corporations and companies which we're not recovering any cost for, and other jurisdictions are. So these are the types of fee increases that actually made sense, and I asked the members opposite to somewhere look into some of these fee increases with environment conservation and ask how it impacts everyday Newfoundland and Labradorians, because quite frankly it actually impacts the multinational corporations that are going to be doing environmental impact assessments and other things across our great land. In addition to the estimates, in addition to the fees, some of the other things that were mentioned is, you know, why didn't we look at Alberta? And the member for Topsail and the official leader of opposition said, now Alberta's taken a much different approach. Now, yes, they did, and I would wager to guess that everybody here knows we're quite different than Alberta in both size, income, and particularly population. And some of the things that came back from Alberta's budget, well, recently Moody's has downgraded their credit rating. Okay? Quite the opposite of what's happened here recently when we took our budget measures. And I'll just want to read another quote, and this one is from an economist at the University of Calgary. Ron Nebon said, Newfoundland's interpretation of the fall in oil price is that oil is not going to come back anytime soon. So rather than accumulate a whole bunch of debt, out of quote now sounds familiar, waiting, hoping and praying that oil prices will come back, they decided to take action to close the deficit. Alberta seems to be doing the opposite. Okay? I mean, so we even have economists that are understanding that stimulating your economy at one time is one thing, and I would wager that if we had the amount of income that and the amount of expenditures that Alberta had, we would certainly look at stimulus as well. We didn't have that opportunity. Okay? We certainly didn't have that opportunity because the members opposite had 10 years and approximately $25 billion in oil revenue that they wasted. If they had to save one-tenth of that, we would not be here today. 1/10 of the royalty generated. I'm going to read another one. The President and CEO of the Atlantic Provinces Economic Council. He said, in Alberta, it is a repeat performance, and governments evidently did not learn from past cycles. In a few years from now, they may wish to revisit their government's choices. And to its infinite credit, the government of Newfoundland and Labrador has presented a 7-year plan that eventually looks for Brent crude prices above $70 a barrel. And that shows a path to somewhere in the general direction of balance. So finally, we're getting to a position of balance after years of not even considering saving, decreasing the taxes on our highest income earners, and decreasing the HST, the whole while it wasn't sustainable. You know, in addition to some of the other opportunities they had, you know, I just can't help but shake my head. You know, I mean, we're here now looking to future generations. We're looking to protect the future generations, okay? We're looking to protect my children's children, and so on and so forth. And so difficult decisions had to be made now. And nobody wanted to be in this position. Not one member on this side of the House got here and said, well, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan. We're going to increase all these taxes and upset everyone in the province and impact everyone. That wasn't the intention, nor certainly was it the idea, you know? And I'll come back to that because the member for St. John's East Kitty just said to say that again. So when we talk about low income, I referenced it earlier, but no one in receipt of income support is going to pay a levy fee. Our seniors benefit has increased. In fact, anybody with $40,000 of a net income will receive a percentage of our income supplement benefit, which the members opposite don't want to talk about. When they talk about our levy, they say anybody less than $20,000 is going to pay a levy. I implore them to read the document a little further. That's $20,000 taxable income. There's quite a significant difference between $20,000 income and $20,000 taxable income. Conceivably, you could be making $31,000, $32,000 gross income and still not have to pay this levy. So, you know, taking things out of context is one thing, but misleading us to get into a financial situation is a complete other, you know. And so we were going to face a position with $2.7 billion deficit. It's $2.7 billion. Now, how would we continue with our day-to-day government services? How would we continue with paving our roads? How would we continue with people going to the hospital? We cannot continue on a path and just kick the can down the road like the members opposite wanted to do year after year. It simply does not make sense. So right now, we've made some tough decisions that I'm not proud of, decisions that our finance minister is admittedly not proud of as well. But these are decisions that have to be made now if we want to have a stronger future. These are decisions that have to be made now.